What's up everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have the 2023 BMW M2 alongside my 2023 Toyota Supra. Both of these cars have a 6-speed manual transmission. So taking a look underneath the hood of both of these cars, the Supra is going to utilize the 3-liter inline 6-cylinder B58 motor. It has one turbocharger pumping out 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. The BMW M2 also has a B58 motor, however this is twin turbocharged, pumping out 453 horsepower with 406 pound-feet of torque. Both cars of course 6-speed manual transmission, rear-wheel drive with limited slip rear differential. Biggest differences aside from the power, the M2 weighs in at 3,800 pounds versus the Supra's 3,400 pounds, and both cars are rated at 0 to 60 in about 3.9 seconds, topping out, depending on the limiter, 155 to 177. Now when you look at the MSRP, a manual Toyota Supra is about $59,000. This M2 is around $65,000. So there is a little bit of a price increase when you go to the BMW version, of course, to get that extra power. Now as far as styling, they are nothing alike. I do love the way both of them look. Kind of got a more modern, boxy, wide body looking to the M2. And the Supra next to it honestly looks so beautiful. Just the lines, it is a stunning car. I think both look fantastic in their own ways. Of course, comment below, what do you guys think looks better? I think they equally look fantastic. In back, I mean, this looks like a low-slung, 2-door, 2-seat sports car. The M2, a little bit more tame, but it still has a pretty unique, boxy style. And then taking a look at the interiors, the M2 has a really nice modern BMW look. Different colors on the seats and a really good use of material. On the Supra, it of course is the previous generation BMW stuff, however, just as refined, just as nice, a lot more compact and simple in here, but both cars look really nice on the interior. I think they both really stand out and are fantastic places to be. So without further ado, let's start them up. Hear a quick rev in the sport modes on each car, take it for a spin. Alright, so we are setting off in the BMW M2 and we're just in the normal conservative drive modes, just kind of getting my bearings with it. We're going to compare the car obviously as normal cars, but also of course as fun performance cars. So normal driving, this is definitely pretty comfortable in the comfort mode. Seats are comfy, good visibility, really just a pleasant place to be. Honestly, this is a nice car. BMW makes refined European luxury cars, and it shows in this car where it feels toned down enough. I have no issues if this was a daily driver. It's comfortable, roomy, spacious, easy to drive, and just a nice vehicle. Technology, I really like BMW's new technology. The screen looks cool, it works well, you got all the nice displays and it's not distracting. And when you're cruising going 60 miles an hour on a smooth road, the suspension in comfort mode is still absorbing the bumps nicely and normal. It doesn't feel like a harsh back-braking track car or anything like that. I do feel the shifter does have a little bit of that rubbery BMW feeling that a lot of us know. The clutch pedal, it's interesting, decent amount of feedback. Of course, when we hop into the Supra, we'll have a little bit better comparison when we're in that, talking about them too. From here, I can tap the M2 button, and I've already set it up. The suspension, the steering, the brakes, everything is now sharpened up to where this is where this car comes alive. We have all the performance now, and there should be a little more drama to what the M2 is going to have to offer. I am excited to rip on this car just a little bit. Wow. That is a healthy motor. This thing gets up to some speed. It'll be interesting because I don't feel as of right now that it's any faster than the Supra. Obviously they have the same 0 to 60 time. It's a nice sweeper turn. Nice and composed, and it still doesn't feel back-braking. We're on kind of a bumpy back road, so not the perfect road in the world, but it still feels solid and easy to manage. Steering is pretty pinpointy as well. Oh, the brakes. They work really, really well. This does have bigger brakes. They're also drilled versus the standard brakes on the Supra. Man, healthy motor, really good. These motors are some of the best performance engines out there. Yeah, so far seems like a really competent performance car. This is my favorite part right here. We got a nice sweeper. We'll carry some speed out of it. Full throttle. Wow. Yeah, this thing moves without any issue. So flat going around that kind of turn, not even an issue. The shifter does feel a little long. But overall, since we know this is so capable and practical at the same time, and yeah, this is a breeze. This is just at home ripping through twisty turns. I have no issues whatsoever. This is a fun car. I love the balance with an M2 because it's practical and yet so much fun. Man, hard around this turn. Gosh, such a smooth power delivery. Oh my gosh, this is a heck of a lot of fun. Alright, so back into my Supra. This is a stock car aside from just an air intake, so you might hear a little bit more engine noises. Sport mode and then sport traction is comparable to where we were in the M2. Already a lot smaller in here. Throttle seems a little quicker in this. I will say right there, the top end didn't quite feel as much. So the M2 with that twin turbo definitely feels a little stronger on the top end, and that's first acceleration now. Into the tight one. Let's see what this is like. Wow, this is so darty. Steering. I almost want to say, so far the steering feels a little more pinpointy in the Supra. It just feels a little bit eager. We have a 400-pound weight difference between these two cars, which is a lot of weight. Coming around quick turns, I mean, this thing is so pinpointy. Yeah, I'd say top end, definitely a 50 horsepower difference. It really does. Once you're going, the weight doesn't really make too much of a difference. So I could see that for sure with those extra turbos. I can say already, you got a little bit more power in the M2. Off the line, obviously they're going to be very similar given the weight, but once you're rolling, you notice the extra horsepower. Man. The Supra does feel a little bit more tight, a little bit more nimble around the turns given the less weight. That is definitely a pretty big difference between the two cars. This just feels more shrink-wrapped around you. Obviously, we only have a two-seater car, so it's significantly less practical. It's just a smaller car in general. So you can feel that when you're doing the performance things. The car just kind of tightens up a little bit more. Now, if we take this one out of sport mode and everything, one of the biggest reasons why I bought this car is the fact that it also gives you those refinements. You know, I was looking at the Nissan Z. It just doesn't feel like a $60,000 car. When you're in this Supra, it feels like a BMW. It feels like an expensive, refined car. And when you're in this car, it feels nice. You know, things you touch, things you feel, just the ride quality and everything. Now that we're in comfort mode, it feels just like a expensive brand like a BMW. And that's a huge selling point, I think, with these cars that make this stand out from maybe a Nissan Z or something else like it, which there's not really much in this category. This might be a slightly noisier on the cabin than the BMW. There's probably a little bit more sound deadening in the car. I mean, they got to get that 400 pounds somehow. But when you compare this to other cars, this is a refined, nice place to be, just like in that one. As far as the technology, definitely not as cool. This is older BMW. You have a nice normal screen that gives you everything you need and a decent gauge cluster with all the vitals, really. The BMW's definitely got that futuristic feeling, being obviously BMW's going to put their newest stuff in their branded vehicles. So you get that little extra premium design with the technology in the M2. And then the fit and finish overall, again, this is normal BMW. The M2 is newer, so you got the colors on the seats, a little bit nicer materials, more carbon fiber on the interior as well. Now, as far as the manuals go, I like the Supra's manual much better. This is way more notchy. You have to engage each gear. It feels really, really good. You get that normal BMW kind of rubbery feeling when you go into the gears in that M2. So what Toyota did, they took the manual out of the 4-cylinder Z4 in Europe and they completely revised it to fit this engine. This is the only transmission fitted to this exact engine. And what Toyota did to this transmission is a lot. It makes it more fun to drive, more notchy, and just feels a little bit more precise. And the shifter, it feels much more slim, shorter. This is definitely a nicer shifter. Clutch pedal, this does feel a little bit heavier and there's a little bit more feedback. So it almost seems like the Supra, they really dialed into what an M2 can do as far as the fun factor, giving you everything performance focused, but it can still tone down to be a pretty normal luxury daily. The M2 kind of has a more normal feeling transmission and clutch to where I guess it's a more usable daily driver car just because, you know, the clutch is a little lighter and things like that. Man, going around a tight turn, yeah, the steering is definitely a little sharper in this car. It's interesting to compare both cars back and forth because they have a lot of similarities and yet there's a lot of differences to where they're not honestly direct competitors. Price point, they're very close, you know, within $5,000, so you could definitely cross shop these two. But biggest things that are standing out is definitely the manual shifter in the Supra. This is more fun, more engaging to drive. We're already talking about an amazing car, so don't get me wrong, the M2 is a beast. The shifter and like when you're driving this car, it's all about driving and it gives you enough tech to be in a modern car. The M2 gives you the extra stuff as well. But this car is just more pointy for sure. And even being the newer engine with the 380 horsepower versus the 2020, which had 330, you know, you can tell this falls a little flat on its face. Now at the wheels, manual Supra's dyno around 400 horsepower to the wheels. I would assume the M2 is going to dyno around 450, and you can definitely tell just above that 4,000 RPM. This hits you, it carries its weight. Obviously, we're accelerating really well, and it's a pretty darn quick car. But you can totally tell in the M2, it just pulls a little bit harder having the two turbos. So overall, it's just fun driving these two back to back. This is the shrunken down, hunkered down, handling car. The M2's got the practicality and is a powerhouse with that extra turbocharger. Both cars are a heck of a lot of fun. Let's head back to the parking lot and wrap it up. All right, so after my back-to-back test drive in the Supra and M2, both cars are awesome, and I truly think these are some of the benchmark cars for around that $60,000 price point. I don't think you can get a better car that offers what these two offer. With that said, the Supra's transmission and clutch are better. The transmission shifter is so notchy, it's really precise, it is a joy. The clutch pedal, very, very good feedback, very good engagement. On the BMW, the real BMW, it's definitely a little bit not as engaging for a manual, and I can see why some people choose the DCT over the stick shift on that, just because a little rubbery on the shifter, and the clutch pedal, not as much feedback. Not to say it's bad, it's just that is a step up as far as the fun factor. Handling, Supra, it weighs less, it's smaller, it's more hunkered down. It is super pinpointy and sharp in sport mode. I mean, if I had to go to the track or the mountains, I would absolutely take the Supra. Now, the BMW, the M2, power, man, that extra 50 horsepower makes a difference. Now, around town, the slow speed getting up to go, they're about the same. Obviously, 0 to 60 is about the same, but above 4,000, this thing pulls where it makes the Supra feel like it's falling flat on its face. So that is sweet to see that top end. That is a joy. Also, the BMW M2 feels a little bit more refined, a little bit more comfortable, I'd say, nicer technology, a little bit more refinements on the interior. So I feel like if it's your only car, your daily, the M2 is better because it's more practical. You got the tech, you got all that fancy stuff, still a beast of a sports car, and it's got the power just to get up on the highway and stuff like that. If it's a weekend toy where you really want to play with the turns, Supra is definitely better. With that said, I think both are fantastic, like I've mentioned, and it was awesome to test out these two head-to-head. We had this for a whole week. Mike's even taken it on a trip to Florida and back, so we're going to have a lot of seat time in the new M2. Comment below, what do you guys think? Have you driven these two cars? Now, the M240 also exists, an all-wheel drive car, automatic, kind of a more soft version of both of these cars for a little bit less money, so that's also a pretty cool option. But when you compare the new M2 to the manual Supra, manual to manual, I think it's really nice to see that the Supra is purely a fun sports car, can still be a good daily, but the M2 has a little extra daily stuff. but then you're sacrificing a little bit of the performance stuff for the fun factor. So there is my video comparing the manual Supra to the manual M2. I think Toyota may have made a better BMW as far as purely the fun sports car. I'm not gonna lie, this thing is amazing for the fun factor. M2, I could totally see buying this after the Supra when I need the practicality but want a Supra. The M2 is the way to go if that's kind of where you are in life. Supra though, I don't need practicality, I just want fun, so that's the car for me right now. But I can see getting one of these at some point. This is a cool car. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, stay tuned for plenty more content to come, and we'll see you all in the next video.